So all the way from Namibia, we're going to speak about entrepreneurship, how the African continent is like taking its place on the international stage. Comfort, could you please introduce yourself and why you are interested in entrepreneurship?
Hello, I am Comfort, or my name is Comfort. I am Nigerian, but I live in Namibia. I practically grew up here, went to school here, did everything here, had my first jobs here. And entrepreneurship for me is something that is very close to my heart. I think I've always known from when I was like a teenager that I was going to be a business person. I've been very interested in owning my own business and just understanding what it means to run a business from start to finish. And not just because I'm an idealistic millennial who just wants to do my own thing, but I think it's definitely something that people should look more into, not just trying to hustle for the glory and all the nice thing that it looks like, you know, when people talk about owning their own business, they're like, oh, I just want to have my own business so I can do whatever I want whenever I want. But that's not the reality of what it means to own a business. So I think that if we truly understand what it means to own a business and the journey of an entrepreneurship, then there are many valuable lessons that we can all learn from that entire journey. And the more we talk about it, the more we learn about it.
So before we jump into your entrepreneurial journey, what is your
Yeah.
experience before jumping into this step?
Okay, so right after graduation, I worked with a startup. I would say it was a company that was just under a year, and they at the time they were looking for like a social media manager, and then I applied because like I think I was at that time I was good with social media. I knew a little bit about what it means to have social media presence. So then I applied for the job and I got it. But funny enough, I walked in, and the first day, what happened was, um, because it was a language school, like a language center, they were teaching different languages there. So when I walked in that morning, somebody told the boss, I was having a meeting with the boss, and then somebody came in and said, hey, our English teacher did not come in today. So, you know, what are we going to do? The students are there, they are waiting in class. So now I'm sitting there, I'm just like, oh, wow, there's no English teacher. That's terrible. What are they going to do? And the boss looks at me and says, you have an English degree, don't you? I was like, yeah, sure, but I didn't do it to teach English. He was like, yeah, no, but just for today, please step in and help them, you know, just help them for the day. And by tomorrow, the teacher will be here. So you don't need to, you'll go back to what you came here for. And I was like, cool, because in my mind, or for me, I'm always concerned about the customer. So I was like, oh man, you know, the students are sitting in class. It's going to look bad on the company for them to just tell them there's no teacher for the day. So then I stepped in for that day. And then that day turned into the week turned into the month. And then I ended up just doing that the whole time that I was there, teaching English to all those different people from all over Southern African countries, Angola, some Congolese as well. And it was just an interesting experience to do that and to be there. And what happened, what the biggest thing that I noticed was that as a startup or as a young company like that, you know, there's so many things that probably came to mind when they were going to open that school. They probably thought that, oh, we're going to open a language school. We're going to have so many teachers, so many students. It's going to be great. We're going to make so much money. We're helping people. But the reality of having a business is like maybe the teacher doesn't show up. Maybe some students don't have money to pay. Maybe, you know, so many things will go wrong that people never really think about in for the future. Like maybe the boss could have thought to himself, if a teacher doesn't show up, I have the skill to step in. So, you know, I wouldn't have to ask somebody else to step in. I can do it myself. But in that moment, if I wasn't there, what would they have done? You know, and those are things that we need to think about when it comes to business. But sometimes we don't think about it because we are so wrapped up in, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to make so much money. And you're thinking, like, it's great to have those kind of visions, but realistically, are they going to take you from day to day, from month to month? You know, and grow your business moving forward.
So my next question here, what were the main lessons or the main things you have learned through your work experience that have taken you to entrepreneurship?
The biggest lessons that I got were that you have to be prepared for so many things that can come up. I think that like I said, when you get wrapped up in the idea of what it means to have a business, um, you forget that there are day-to-day activities that need to take you somewhere. So one of the things that I really hold, dear to my heart is the fact that you need to be prepared. You need to have plan A to Z. And then your plan A to Z needs to have plan A to ZZ, like backup plan on backup plan, because anything can happen. It's so crazy how anything can happen when you're running a business, and you are 100% as the business owner, you are 100% responsible for every single thing that is happening in your business. You can try to blame it on other people, but at the end of the day, this is your business and it's your responsibility. People can promise, but they will say, oh, I can do this, or I can do that, or I will help you like this, or I'll help you like that. But if they don't come through for you, you have to have had a plan for that for that lack and for that missing piece. If not, you will be stuck. You will literally be stuck. So you have to plan and plan and plan, and don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try things. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Then you move on. You try it a different way, or you just find a different solution. There's always a solution out there. You just have to be willing to think outside the box and willing to really get down in the dirt and do the work yourself.
And what does it feel for you now that you are on the threshold of starting your own business?
I'm sorry, please repeat.
Can you hear me, Comfort?
Yes.
Okay. So
Please repeat the question.
my question is, how does it feel for you now that you are on the threshold at the beginning of starting your own business?
It's quite overwhelming, honestly. It's really, really quite overwhelming because another thing that I saw that is really important is having a solid team to work with. Not just having a support team, but having people who have the skills that you need in your business to grow your business. So, for example, a lot of people like, starting businesses with their friends. And like, that's great. Start a business with your friend. That's awesome. But if your friend doesn't have the skills needed to make that's going to help that business, whether it's financial, whether it's the actual skills that relate to the service or the product that you are the service that you're providing to the community, whatever, it's not going to work. You're probably just going to end up having them around, but they're not doing anything to help the business. And having a great support team is so important because, for example, one of the businesses that I'm involved in at the moment is like a communications company, marketing. And, it's so nice that when you look at everybody, they have a skill that is instrumental to the business. So this one is a video editor, this one is a graphic designer, this one is a photographer. We don't have anybody who's just around just because, hey, you're our friend and that's great. Everybody has something that they can offer for the business. So when we go to a client, it's easy to say, oh, we can offer you all these services because these are the people who are doing these things. So having a great team is so important. And that's one thing I'm really focusing on, putting a great team together for my business and just identifying people and their characteristics and their personality also, because it doesn't matter if if they're a good worker or whatever, but if our personalities do not come together, do not work well, then there might be a clash in there, and you don't want to have a clash in your business. A clash of personalities will just make things too dramatic, and you're not going to, reap the benefits. So I'm just trying to put a good team together. And secondly, I am trying to educate myself as much as possible by reading a lot, watching a lot of videos, and courses as I can, because I feel like knowledge is important, and I don't want to be blindsided by anything that comes through in the business. Granted, some things I probably cannot prepare 100% for, but I want to have at least some idea of something before it happens to me, or before I have to get into that stage. So I'm just really trying to educate myself as much as possible, and finding the right team to work with, because that's very important. And when I have enough of both of that, then I will take the next step for my business.
That is great. Okay, my next question here is, what would you like to see changed now in your business so that you would say that I have the ideal business now?
Wow, that's a pretty heavy question. I think the one thing that I would like to see change, not necessarily in my business, but maybe just around me, is I wish that more people were open um, to the service, the kind of service that we are offering, or that we're trying to offer. So part of the services that we offer have to do with things like marketing and content creation, but we're really struggling to convince people that content creation for for your business is important, because many companies get by on traditional marketing, like radio, newspaper, TV ads. They don't necessarily see the value in transitioning that kind of marketing, or that kind of energy of marketing, into social media marketing as well, or even having a website. A lot of companies still don't have an active and lead generating website. So that's one of the things that I wish people were more open to, because it would be so much easier to have a conversation with a potential client and say, hey, these are the services that I offer. I think you would benefit from A, B, C, and D. And then they would hear your proposal, and then they can respond and say, okay, yes, definitely. I would like to try out this and this on my social media, or please take a look at my website and revamp my website, or whatever. But so far, we first have to kind of educate people on the need of creating content and having a strong social media presence, which feels like it should be common sense, but it's not because of COVID. It feels like it should be common sense because COVID has shown us that online is really where we are going with everything. But it's still difficult to convince people of that. But we are hopeful, and we are still putting out content to educate people. I'm always talking about it all over my social media, talking about how everybody can really benefit from really cleaning up their social media image and presenting a more professional front, educating other people, using social media to really drive in or to get more clients for, yes, their business. Um, yeah, yeah, that's what I really wish would really improve, because I know in my heart that I'm ready and I'm able to offer all of these services, and like I'm ready to work right now. But it's difficult to convince clients that this is a service that they need, because they're just not there yet in their, in their psyche. They're just not there yet. So yeah.
So, Comfort, if you would like to describe the, let's say, the business environment in Namibia, what would you say?
Well, it's thriving. There are a lot of businesses here every single day. You get to learn about new businesses every single day. And I think that people are really people really have an entrepreneurship spirit, whether they admit it or not. Everybody's always trying to sell you something, or buy something from you. So I really think that the entrepreneurship spirit is really thriving in Namibia. And what I'm excited about is to see the kind of innovations that come out of it, because I think that the more people do business, the different kind of businesses will come up, because they're finding new problems to new things that you didn't even know existed. I'm really excited to really see the kind of businesses that come up in the next couple of years, because the kind of ideas that I have been seeing amongst young people and even some older people is really interesting. They really have so much to share. There's so much knowledge that people want to put out there. There's so many things that people are building, and it's so interesting to see where people's minds are really, going to.
Okay, so my question here is, what main recommendations would you give the African young people?
Wow. Google, number one, Google is your best friend. Like, if there is anything that you need, if there is any question that you have on your mind, on your heart, Google it. First of all, Google it like a million ways. Find books about it, find videos about it, listen to podcasts. Really do the research part of the work that is required, because knowledge is power. And as you are learning, as you are reading up and Googling all these things, I want you to also execute. Don't just be the kind of person who just sits for the next 15 years reading and reading and reading and having an idea in your mind and saying, oh, what if one day when I know? Read, execute, test out the knowledge that you are gaining on the spot. Failing, there's nothing wrong with failing. There's nothing wrong with trying things out and it's not working out. You gain so much from failing, much more than you realize, much more than you gain from when you win, actually. So really take those lessons and implement the lessons, what you gain from the lessons, and try to do better moving forward. There's a there's that quote or that saying, fail fast, fail often, fail forward. That is so true. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to believe in yourself 100%. And, you know, I'm getting lost for words now, but don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself. Yes, don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself, because at the end of the day, you are 100% responsible for your life and your future. Don't live a life and at the end of it you have all these what if questions. I hate regret, and that I feel like that is one of the biggest things, that when you're 90 years old and you have all these what if questions, that is so heartbreaking. And I never want that. It drives me so much. I never want to be at that kind of position. So please, please, please try out every idea in your mind. Everything that comes to your mind, try it out, test it out. Just, take a chance on it. Really, really take a chance on yourself. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of your hustle. Don't be ashamed of your journey. Everybody starts from zero and builds themselves. So don't be afraid when you are at zero and everybody's like, oh, your idea is not going to work. What are you doing? That's so dumb. That's so unnecessary. Why are you this person? It's okay to be different, because if we were all the same, the world would be so, so incredibly boring. So it's okay to be different. It's okay to be you. Try out every idea. Please, please, please try out every idea. I'm begging, try out everything. Google everything, because the knowledge is free. Execute, because you cannot sit with all those $1 million ideas, those life-changing, life-impacting ideas just in your mind, and nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to take them out of your mind. You have to be the guy to execute. You have to be the girl to execute. We are waiting. Africa is waiting for your genius. Please, 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 please.
Okay, concerning Africa, Comfort. Like, what are your main concerns? What do you recommend for Africa to be more embracing and more welcoming for entrepreneurship?
I think that we have to look at education and the access to education that people have. A couple of days ago, I watched the film The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. I don't know if if you've seen that movie, but it was such an incredibly inspiring movie because it showed this young man who had a limited access to education. He was only able to go to school for like maybe a couple of years. I'm not sure of the full details, but then his parents were not able to pay his school fees. And then instead of just going back home and not continuing school, there was a problem. There was a famine in his community at the time. This happened in Malawi. And he came across he went to the library one time and he came across a book that said something about energy, and it had the picture of the windmills on the front page. And he saw this and something sparked in him. So now I keep wondering, what if he had never gone into the library? What if he had never come across that book? Now there was a movie made about him because he did so many things, even though he was sneaking into the library and reading books to educate himself. What if he didn't have that access to that piece of information that could potentially change his life? So I really think that we need to encourage the culture of learning and reading and going the extra mile to get the information, because I feel like in a way we not really encouraged to do that. I think about times when you when I was younger in school, when we have that one person in the corner who's reading books and reading and reading, everybody's like, oh, what are you reading for? Like, why are you that kind of culture really discourages people who want to go the extra mile. So we need to encourage people. When you see somebody reading, you also pick up a book. You also be reminded that, oh, today I haven't learned something. Let me go on let me go on YouTube and watch a video about something educational and inspire myself to do something different, to have new knowledge, to improve myself a little bit. I really think that we need to look at education and just encouraging people to self-educate more than anything, because it feels like schools are not doing enough. But if you can really go the extra mile to educate yourself, education is really big in Africa. And it breaks my heart to think of all the geniuses that we are potentially missing out on because they don't have access to books or libraries or the internet. It's so heartbreaking. But if we can just encourage education, it would be so, so cool on this continent. Reading especially.
It has been so inspirational, so amazing talking to you, Comfort, from your comfort place in Namibia. Thank you so much for that indeed.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation as well. This was really fun.